For more on the economy, we want to bring in the co-founder and CEO of All In Together, Lauren Leader. Despite a better-than-expected May jobs report, Lauren, you have new polling that shows that women are still pessimistic about the state of the economy. So this is the latest survey from All In Together and Echelon Insights. 46% of women say they think the country's situation will be worse in 6 months' time. Are we prescient? What's going on?
Yeah, so as you know, we've been polling women voters really back to 2018 on the regular, trying to understand what are the key issues and concerns. And in this case, we also really wanted to go deep on what's going on with Republican women voters, given the context of the upcoming presidential primary. And what we found is that the economy remains a hugely important issue, but particularly for Republican voters. Democrats are less concerned about it. It is a top 3 concern for all voters. About 50% of voters say they're concerned about the economy, but particularly for Republican women.
Why?
Well, it's really interesting. So it's driven heavily by their concern about specific costs of living, like housing costs, but they're also really pessimistic about the future. They think that the economy is going to be worse. About 64% say they think the economy will be worse in 6 months. And what struck me about this is that if you consider this as a top voting issue for Republican women and a top voting issue for Republican men, the candidates are barely talking about this. I mean, the focus of the entire campaign so far has been on social issues and, culture wars, not on the economy, which their own voters are saying they're very worried about.
Rev?
The fact that their own voters are more concerned about their jobs, their economic standing, than the cultural wars. Why do you think, and is there any data that you've gotten that says why the candidates are so stuck on the culture wars? Is it that they are trying to play to Trump's base, or what is perceived as that, or are they just tone deaf to their own voters?
I think it's a really interesting political question, but if you look at the fight within the Republican Party on the debt ceiling limit, I think there's a lot of division in the party about what the right solutions are. I mean, you've got Republicans holding Congress hostage right now, refusing to pass votes over McCarthy's deal around the debt ceiling. So I don't know, but I think there's clearly not a clear message. We've barely heard them talking about it, but I think the important part here is, women voters are critical. It's not just the women voters, men Republicans are saying this matters to them too, but this is a potentially winning issue for Republicans. I don't really understand why they're not focusing on it.
So let's take the other side of it, how Democrats feel. The White House, I mean, look, they point to the numbers and they think the economy is growing. They point to the job growth. They point to the rebound since the height of the pandemic. They acknowledge inflation is still an issue, and there's enough warning signs on the horizon that they know that we're not out of the clear necessarily for a recession between now and the election, but they feel pretty good about it. Should they be leaning into this issue more?
Well, so it's a top 3, but it's not the top, and we'll talk more about that in the next few weeks as our polls come out about guns and abortion. Those are actually the top issues right now for Democratic voters. But there was some really interesting detail in here that I think are super important for the Democrats. Young voters under 29 are very worried about their job prospects, which is really interesting to me when you consider how low the unemployment numbers are. But it's not translating for them. There was a lot of concern in our data from young voters about whether they would have the right job opportunity, whether they'll have jobs. So I think that's going to be important. I don't know what that's driven by. Maybe some of it's just the kinds of jobs. It's the shift in the way people are working today, that young people don't want to be in the office. It's a bunch of things, but I definitely think there's some economic alarms in there. Again, not the top issue for Democrats, but clearly of concern, and specifically housing costs and child care costs for Democrats.
Co-founder and CEO of All In Together and Lauren Leader, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
You'll be back with more. Coming up, Republican presidential